In order to let something grow well, you have to be able to let go and let others do what they do best, because we just can't, right? We can't control it all and hold it all and build it all.
This is the Startup Junkies podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thanks for tuning in, joining us from wherever you're joining in, however you're joining us. We appreciate it. My name is Caleb. I am the host of Startup Junkies podcast, one of many hosts of the Startup Junkies podcast, but the one you're stuck with today. I'm excited to be joined by our friend Heather Applegate of Pivot X. How's it going, Heather?
So good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. So we'll just jump right into it. You know, we like to start the conversations off. Jeff kind of coined this back in the day, but your Marvel origin story. Actually, we'll start with the Pivot X origin story. Tell me a little bit about our listeners. What is Pivot X?
Pivot X is it's an executive coaching and strategic advisory. And so I work with executives who are trying to figure out what's next, a lot of times trying to achieve clarity, especially if they're in the startup phase and lots of ideas coming together, and how do I sort those ideas into an actionable plan. And then I work with them again in the next phase of growth when they're moving from being product focused to people focused. So how do I now focus on leading others, leading a team, and making this more clear for everyone rather than just blocking and tackling everything myself. And then again, in ownership transition, when owners are ready to move out and onto something else maybe, and then someone else is coming to run a team that they didn't build. So
tell me a little bit about, kind of where the origin story of that Pivot X journey started, where along the road, tell us, I guess, starting with your origin story, and where along that story you realized that this was a great, opportunity for you as a founder, and just your willingness to help folks in the state.
It's funny to look back on it now because, you take aptitude tests when you're like 12 and 13. And I remember mine was like helper or something. And I was like, whatever that means. And so what I was really interested in was psychology. Schizophrenia blew my mind when I was in junior high. And so I just kept going down that track and eventually got to college and studied psychology. I started with business actually, and then I moved into psychology, realizing that what I really love is human behavior. And so exited college, graduated, moved on, and really just jumped straight back into the business lane. Ran a nonprofit for a few years, moved into another leadership position, another company, and developed teams in the creative space. And at the end of all of that, I just took a minute and realized what I really love, regardless of subject matter, is propelling teams forward, propelling people toward achieving the idea, that thing that they have inside that they can't get out. I really love facilitating those discussions. And so it gives me a lot of juice, a lot of energy to come in and really help give them extra momentum to keep going.
Kind of that aha moment when they're going to have maybe decision paralysis or something like that, essentially. Yes. What does that ideal client look like?
Oh gosh, I hate that question. No, it really is a good question. It's just there are so many different.
So broad.
Yeah, it is so broad. I really try. I keep trying to narrow it down, and I think the best way that I can say it is it's mostly a solopreneur, someone who is alone in the foxhole. Maybe not a solopreneur, but alone at the top. And they don't have someone else to kick these ideas off of. And so usually that's when I can come in and help bring some clarity to either what they're trying to get out of their head or how they're trying to work with the team. When they are in a partnership, then of course you have other people dynamics that come into play. So, that's why it's hard to define the ICP, because it's really a myriad of things. But I would say across industries, and really startup to exit. So I quit this question.
So when you're encountering someone that kind of, maybe they are at a pivot point, to play on the name, they're at a pivot point. What does a successful pivot look like to you? But also, what are the misconceptions around a pivot? Because I know sometimes in our space, when we're dealing with startup clients, and it's like, oh, well, there's a pivot's necessary. There's almost like the misconception that they're failing at this or they're failing at that, or it's there's a misconception, I feel like, sometimes. So what would you say is the misconception around a pivot with folks that you work with, and what does a successful one look like?
Realignment.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity for realignment.
Mm-hmm.
I think a chance to make a pivot is not admitting failure, and there should not be any stigma attached. I mean, really, what we're doing is failing fast, learning, getting up, moving forward. And so that's what it's all about, is figuring out, if I'm feeling stuck in this moment, what's the next right alignment?
Mm-hmm. What would you say is maybe like the biggest mindset shift for the individual you're working with, as opposed to from the outside looking in, what their misconception is when you're especially working with teams and folks that kind of, they're like, you both have the nuclear codes that have to turn. Like, what is the kind of some of the challenges working with folks in that position?
Each is different, but I will say it's really the hardest part is getting outside of one's self. And it's so tempting in those dynamics to say, well, that person did this and I reacted this way, so what's the next tactical thing I can do to fix the problem? And honestly, that's rarely the answer. Like, you're not going to put a Band-Aid on it and fix it and move on the next day and everything's fine. It's about how we're wired to see the world and approach relationships. And so whenever I'm working with an individual, my favorite aha is when it's like, oh, I respond to conflict by backing away or by leaning in too hard because I think I'm going to lose access to this, or I'm going to get left behind or be abandoned or be thought less of, like, what is the fear that's controlling our next move? And if we can identify the fear that's controlling that move, then we can have awareness to it and then pivot around it.
So there's an opportunity to apply some of that psychology into the equation too, because I feel like in order to do that successfully with the folks you're working with, it's in addition to trying to get all of this into that game plan or that strategy, I imagine a good chunk of that is also that self-realization piece that you're working with folks too. What would you say the balance between the two is?
Oh, kind of depends on the stage of the game. So if, if they're starting up, then it's really a more strategic focus, and we're breaking apart all the elements of their business and how we thought about marketing, we thought about finance, so that's more tactical. And then whenever they bring in teams or whenever they're really struggling with confidence, that's when it's back into more of a psychological mindset.
And when you're working with, say, that startup founder who is successfully scaling and they're trying to, create that vision of what's next and kind of the direction that they're trying to go, how do you deal with the folks that are, maybe have kind of almost an identity crisis because of the growth of the company? And, we've encountered folks before that their company's growing and their role in that almost seems to diminish. Maybe their company's growing beyond their role as the founder, or they take on capital and they kind of have a level of expectation that they might not see themselves. Maybe it's just self-doubt, or maybe it is just the company's kind of scaling beyond the limitation of their initial role. How do you handle a situation like that?
That's a lot of questions wrapped into one.
Rambling question. I'm sorry.
That was good. Well, I think that it's really important to determine what the question is, because I think in some instances, it's identity. It's like, what did I think my identity was going to be in this position? What were my expectations of this? And also, it's being honest about, what am I best at? Like, am I best at creating a product, or am I best at moving forward and leading a team? And sometimes the answer is product. And so that takes awareness and acceptance and humility. And maybe sometimes the answer is team, but we got to work on some areas.
Yeah.
So, did I answer that question? I think it's really just narrowing in on what is the identity. And also the other important part is like letting go of ownership and realizing that there is going to be an identity shift. And in order to let something grow well, you have to be able to let go and let others do what they do best, because we just can't right? We can't control it all and hold it all and build it all.
Even if that means kind of working themselves out of a job almost, in a sense, for some founders.
Yeah.
So how has, I guess, customer or client acquisition, what does that look like for you at this stage?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach right now. And so, luckily we live in a really cool place, building a lot of really cool businesses around here. So there's the local networking, there's some lead gen that's, all over the US. And then it's going to some other events that take me outside of both of those spaces and put me with new pools of people. And, I like this phrase. Maybe Jeff even said this to me one time, fish where the fish are.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really true. Just putting myself in places where there are clusters of people who actually have needs for my services. I've been, I started doing this honestly, whenever I started, it was like referrals here and there and just word of mouth and just kind of hoping that something would take, how we do. We're just like, it just felt like there was not a lot of strategy because there didn't have to be.
You weren't fishing where the fish were, you were chasing rabbits.
Honestly. And so, it's over time, it's just been a more concerted effort of how can I do this intentionally and really be smart about it.
Are you an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur looking to get plugged into the ecosystem? We host a ton of events designed for education, inspiration, and collaboration, from weekly meetups to quarterly events like pitch competitions and annual events like our marquee event, the Startup Crawl, which is the largest startup party in Arkansas. Check out our event page on our website, sign up, and we'll see you there.
You mentioned beforehand, I guess, not having events to promote currently, but speak to the events piece. You mentioned going to events to connect with folks. How has events played in kind of that connectivity?
Different industries that I have been engaged with in the past or relate to. So, one local one. This is not far away, but we have our Retail Innovation Week. There were all those events that week. That was a really good one. Just getting to meet other people in the industry who are well connected to people, not just connected, like everybody has a job, everybody has a company, but people who were able to see within the leadership of other companies. So I guess strategic partnerships are the goal there.
I often tell folks that come into, whether they're starting something or they're new to the ecosystem, or just trying to kind of figure out where they want to be in the ecosystem, often point them to events, whether they're hosted by us or hosted by, friends and collaborators of ours. Because, at Startup Junkie, part of our kind of mission around the events is to create community around entrepreneurship, whether that serves in that event, education, inspiration, or that connectivity. And so I often encourage people to go out and be willing to participate, to get out of their, get out of the lab, so to speak, and go to some of these events. Yeah. And so that's kind of an affirmation of that almost.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great week. There's A Million Cups, which is a great way to meet people who are doing startups. There are there's a Money and Women collective conference that's happening this week that I'm excited to engage with. No agenda, just other than to learn and meet other smart people. But I will say, apart from events, I forgot to mention that I was super scared to put myself out there at first. And so I was very passive about how I was putting my message and my brand out. And so I had LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. I still do all those things, and my website. Just kind of hoping that if enough people saw it, they would come to me. But I was not being active in my own community that is so rich. And once I kind of identified, like, hey, you're just really scared and you're hiding behind these things, then I was able to take a step and connect with a few people, and then more and more and more. And this web is just vast. So that's been an incredible change.
And the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
Too, almost. Yeah.
The easier it becomes, the more I learn about, the more opportunities there are, the more events that are just in my awareness. And it just keeps getting better.
And I'm biased. I think Northwest Arkansas is really, I mean, it's rich in terms of opportunity, but I think in terms of the folks that are eager and willing to collaborate with folks, I think we're very blessed and it's very rich here in Northwest Arkansas.
Absolutely.
So, it's, again, just biased. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I often tell people that 1 Million Cups is, even though I don't make it up enough for it, is like Entrepreneur Church.
Yeah.
Same time, same place, free coffee. I mean, you
Yeah,
can just
that's
expect
right.
to go and connect with folks that are kind of in similar trenches almost.
Yeah, that's totally right.
Yep.
The LinkedIn lead generation thing I was talking about, that's been a fun experiment too, because it was just putting myself out there. I don't solicit opportunities there. I don't send messages and say, "Hey, have you heard about?" Or like, "Are you in need of coaching this week?" Blah blah. No. But what I do is I make genuine connections with people who don't live here. And we just hop on a 30-minute call and I learn about their business and they learn about mine, and they're fascinating and they're generous. And it's opened my eyes to, really just generosity within the business space globally, not just within the U.S. And also it's really inspired me to be generous when someone calls and says, "Hey," like whenever whenever I hit it and they're like, "Maybe you could give me advice."
When we invite you back on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just so like I've been learning and I've been entering this space. And so whenever I get to be a veteran, I would love to return the favor and, just be generous as well.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the willingness to kind of shoot your shot almost is a soft skill. Like, so tell me a little bit about, in terms of the folks that you work with and then what you've learned about yourself, what are some super underrated soft skills or super valuable soft skills that you yourself, you've identified that you might potentially have, but you see as kind of like, superpowers in some of the folks you're working with?
What I am told, I have a tough time owning things sometimes. I'm good at asking questions that are a little bit deeper than the surface. So just that level 2 and that level 3, I kind of follow the rabbit. And then pattern making. For me, it's all about pattern making. And so, we're protective by nature. And so sometimes we're trying to dance around a topic to get an answer, but we're not really saying the full thing. And so it has been a skill that I've learned to be able to call that on the carpet and say, is this really actually about that rather than this? So that helps a lot. I think the other thing, whenever we're talking about strategic planning, is being able to put words to people's thoughts. So, like, let's take branding or creating a mission or a vision. Like a lot of times I'll get founders to give me some words. We'll just talk through concepts, and there's just it's just brain, like everything is everywhere, brain dump. And so what I can do is really put that into a concise statement for them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that is exactly what I was trying to say." So that's a lot of fun.
That is a lot of fun, because I feel like sometimes just people know how they feel about something. They know what they want to do. They know what their personal purpose is within their professional goals. But being able to put exact words to it, they might not necessarily be the wordsmith to deliver, I think is definitely a skill that people don't even realize is so important until they're sitting there in front of a piece of paper or in front of a Word doc.
Yeah.
And able to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think we all want to be heard and we all want to be understood. And so in all of it, whether we're doing some strategic planning or we're working out, interpersonal issues, or we're talking about vision, or we're talking about identity, like all of it is about giving my clients the opportunity to be heard, understood, and then for them to understand themselves so that they can move on to the next steps.
So what does success look like for you? Professionally and personally?
Oh, man. Gosh, what a question. Success for me, it looks like doing all the things I really love.
Mm-hmm.
If I build a business that just takes off and goes through the roof, if I write a book, if I do speaking tours, whatever, like that is cool. But I'm a big fan of balance. And I know a lot of people say balance is a myth, and maybe the better word is harmony.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to build a life that I want.
Mm-hmm.
If I get to the end of it and all I have is a career, but I missed the life, I didn't get it.
Not success.
Not success. So, maybe I want my cake and I want to eat it too. But, I want a business that is healthy. I want to know that I'm doing good work and making an impact on people's lives and businesses. I want to raise 4 beautiful children who have what they need and never worry. I want to raise kids who know what it means to work, and who understand the value of that and who can see it in action. So, and I want friends and relationships. So success to me is everything. Like I've got to integrate the things. I've got to integrate the people that I want to work with and the relationships that I want to build. And I'm really just quite greedy when it comes down to it.
That's a good thing to be greedy about. I think that's a pretty good thing to be greedy about. I wouldn't say that was greedy. That's what success looks like. If you were to, and this is kind of one of our land the plane questions, so to speak, if you were to go back in time with that in mind, with all of the accumulated knowledge that you've developed over the years of having, and all the roles that you've been in, and could give your younger self advice, maybe it's going into college, coming right out of college, what advice would you give your younger self?
Don't do anything different. I truly wouldn't change anything, because everything, even the hard stuff, the really gritty moments in my career, they taught me something really important. And so maybe accept things faster, be open faster. But really, I try to do that. Yeah. So I think every bit of life is important to experience, and I truly wouldn't change any of it.
You wouldn't be where you are now without all those things.
Yeah. We're all on a path to somewhere.
So is there anything that you would like for our listeners or viewers to know that I didn't touch on or ask, or something that you would like to impart with them?
I'm doing some work on experiences around a full-bodied life. That's really kind of what I'm trying to get at with this greediness of mine. But it's a concept I've been working on for a while, where, what are all the components that make our lives full? And how can we really assess and grow them intentionally? So I'm not entirely sure how that's going to look yet, but I'm working on it. So I guess that's a stay tuned. But in the meantime, I've got some end of year questions that I'm going to be rolling out. Just reflection back on 2025 to go into 2026 with strategy, rich, like it's really, it's 54 questions. It's to collect some rich data on your business, on your health, on your goals, long-term vision. So, so those are going to be coming out in a few different bundles over the next few weeks.
Awesome. And so for folks that want to make sure they catch that, or want to connect with you, or want to learn more about you or PivotX, what's the best way to reach you?
They can follow me on LinkedIn, PivotX Coaching. They can follow me on Instagram. I believe it's the.pivotx, and they can always go to thepivotx.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, same to you.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share with a friend. Subscribe and review, because it matters to us and we want to hear from you. If you're interested in learning how to work with us, check out the information below. See you next week.